Hey guys, Koizi here, and this year is the 100th anniversary of both the Walt Disney Company and the subject of this ranking, Walt Disney Animation Studios. They have been making cartoons since 1923, when their Alice comedies started, and now they are the biggest entertainment monopoly on the earth, and the oldest animation studio in the business. They may not be a perfect studio, which is why I'm doing a ranking from worst to best, but when they are at the latter, they are the best. Not my word, Matt said it best in his animation studio tier list. They have made some of the most iconic, the most popular, and the greatest animated features ever created, and I'm glad to be talking about these movies. I'll be ranking them differently than I do for other animation studios, since Disney Animation is that old. I'll be splitting them into the 8 eras of their filmmaking, to per part. Ladies, gentlemen and other genders, I'm Koizi, and this is Disney Animation Ranked. First off, we got the era that started it all. As it is called the Golden Age, there's not a bad film that can be found here. I can talk more about the movies in this era and the next than the movies in other eras cause there's only 5 movies in this, and 6 movies in that. Why not start this ranking with a movie that's mid? The second cheapest movie of the Golden Age. Yep, this one's just mediocre at best. The story is just the animation's alright. The characters are charming. But the movie's kind of forgettable. This film is just an elephant who flies. It kind of copies too much from the movie that's number 2 in this era. The pink elephant scene isn't that scary, and the crows are generic black stereotypes in the 40s. I wouldn't call this a bad movie, but it's definitely not as good as everything else in this era. The first animated feature ever made. The first mainstream animated feature made in America. After rewatching it to start the Disney Animation Marathon, it's a really good start to both the studio and the entire medium of feature animation. If it wasn't for this movie, we wouldn't have stuff like The Iron Giant, Into the Spider-Verse, Shrek, Secret of NIMH, Despicable Me, or any Disney animation movie that came after this. I'm looking at you, Rachel Zegler. At least be more grateful for what this movie is, and what it did to push animation into the mainstream. It exceeded expectations for what a cartoon in general is capable of, and how long it can be. It's a cartoon that made people laugh, feel scared, emotionally connect with the characters, and cry. But just because it is the first mainstream animated feature created, that doesn't mean it's the best. It does have a safe and predictable story, mostly dry humor and a very big age gap between Snow White herself and her prince. Still, I am more than grateful that Walt Disney thought hell back to turn his folly into his phenomenon. Matt's favorite movie, the movie that connects animation with music, and the introduction to package films and concert features. This is an experiment that worked. The animation matches with the instrumental songs in every single frame with great artistry and colorful concepts that were greatly executed. There may be no story, and the characters didn't have personalities, but this movie doesn't need that, as long as it does its job at combining animation with music. When other movies have those 2 flaws, they make those movies straight garbage. Although, this movie still has other flaws. The live-action segments are too slow-paced and they spoil the entire segment before we see it. I mean, seriously, why not tell us the name of the segment and the song it's using, instead of spoiling the entire thing like MGM did to the masterpiece that is Sleepover with its trailer? Dang, these silent genre composers are spoiler freaks. But the movie is still good for doing its job. Also known by some critics as the greatest animated film of all time, or at least one of them. Those guys praise the living crispy cheese out of it. But, to their credit, they do for a good reason. It's not just an adaptation of the Italian fairy tale, it's also an allegory on both sides of obedience. The animation is just as good as other movies of this era and the next 2 years. The characters are memorable and iconic in obvious ways. One of the songs became the company's official anthem. As good as this movie is, I prefer the Guillermo del Toro version over it, thanks to its commentary on fascism and the gorgeous stop motion. This version is probably the second best, but it's still great. The cheapest movie of the golden age. I have a knack for coming-of-age stories, and this one is the best coming-of-age story that this studio made. What an accomplishment for its age. The story of friendship, grief and losing your old home hits hard. The art of this movie captures forest life like no tomorrow. The characters are so relatable for both the kids and the nostalgic adults, no matter the generational gap. It's a shame that Disney cut the scene of Bambi's mom getting shot from the later versions of this film, as it would have been so heartbreaking with the movie's context. I guess the home media editors can't handle animal abuse or dead bodies in their kids' movies, so they decided to play it safe like a pre-Mario Illumination movie or a pre-Spider-Verse Sony animation movie. Bambi, the #1 movie of the Disney Golden Age. Guys, this is when the studios started making bad movies. Literally half of the Wartime Era has some of the worst Disney animation movies ever made. Of course, not all of these movies are bad. These films were made due to World War II, hence being called the Wartime Era, so Walt didn't have the energy to make actual feature films at the time. Which is why he compiled a lot of pre-made segments into 6 package films, including This movie sucks. Really, this movie sucks. Oh my god. It's a repeat of the next movie in this mini ranking. It's just that movie with different music videos. There's no creativity added to the film. Next. It's Fantasia with lyrics. This movie also sucks. It's just a compilation of cartoon music videos. None of the songs in this film match to the animation like Fantasia does. If the studio wants to make a Fantasia with lyrics, why not do that in a Fantasia sequel? Next. And fancy free. Unlike the last 2 movies, this one's just mediocre at best. It's not a really bad movie, but I won't say it's good. This is one of Disney's even mixed bags. It does have some beautiful animation in 2 of the best segments in this package film era, but it also has one of the most boring segments that Disney made among all their package films, and it can have stale and unfunny humor at times. The segment with the slapping bears was a lot of fun, and the Beanstalk segment with Disney's mascot trio stayed mostly faithful to the original fairy tale. However, the slapping bear segment does have a predictable story, and that Beanstalk segment isn't the gigantic movie we all wish got made. The scene where Donald tries to kill a cow was rather hilarious than scary. Thanks a lot, Animat, for changing the context to make the duck kill some high school musical characters. Lastly, the live-action stuff just drags on, and it's worse than Fantasia's live-action stuff. It is better than funny and fancy-free, but this one's still a mixed bag. It's certainly not as good as its standalone sequel, which is #1 on the mini ranking. This film's segments aren't really memorable or funny. They do have good animation, and they are harmless shorts, but I'm just saying. They are kind of forgettable and they are not funny. The movie dragged a bit, but not as much as Funny and Fancy-Free or the To Fantasia wannabes with lyrics. But, like the former, it's not a bad movie. It is a great introduction to one of the three mariachi birds on a carpet, and some of the characters are cute and charming. It's one of those not-so-great movies that got improved by its successor in a long shot. When I was a freshman in Peachtree Ridge High School, I had literature class in the last period, and one of the books I was reading there was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. When we finished the book, we got around to watch the second half of this movie, and it was good. It stayed true to the book, while throwing the signature Disney at the same time. It had a simple story that was easy to follow, animation that's usually good for the studio, characters that are charming and underrated, and a song that is undeniably catchy as fridge. I didn't get to watch the first half of the movie until I decided to watch every Disney animation movie and do this ranking in the first place. When I watched that first half, I did not regret it whatsoever. It has the same pros as the second half. Same story that's easy to follow, same animation that's good, and same characters that are underrated, but it did not have that one catchy song. That's okay, because both segments make this film an underrated classic. It's not a perfect packaged movie, cause there's nothing funny here, but I still like it.
Ah, Pato Donald!
Technically a sequel to Saludos Amigos, and it's better than Saludos Amigos. It's an improvement to that film in a lot of ways. The segments are better, the animation is better, the music is better, the comedy is better, and it brought the title birds together for some incredible chemistry. In terms of animated films set in Brazil, this is better than both real films. That is saying a lot, since this came out in the 40s, and I'm Gen Z. I grew up with Blue Sky flicks, and this old Disney package film is better than a Blue Sky duology. I won't say that as a bad thing. Those real movies are forgettable and mediocre, but this is a good movie. Unfortunately, the Wartime Era had to go downhill from here until Ichabod and Mr. Toad came out, but it was worth it. Before I end this video, I'm reminding you that parts 1 and 2 of Disney Animation Ranked were written during the final stretch of the SAG-AFTRA strike. I will congratulate them if they make their deal with the studios, and I'll still stand in solidarity with the actors until they reach a new contract.